Today we're going to talk about wiring the pickguard for our offset P90 guitar kit. We're going to walk through wiring the pickups to the switch and then the switch to the volume and tone controls all the way out to the output. Let's get started. Start by attaching all the components to the pickguard. That will just make it a lot easier as you're working through everything to have it sitting in place. One thing I'll note on these, the wire colors are not consistent across the guitar kits, so pay attention to where they're connected rather than what color might be connected in each spot. We'll start by connecting the pickups to the switch. This is a standard Les Paul style three-way switch. Each pickup has two wires. The insulated wire is the hot and the bare wire is the ground. Each hot wire will go to one side of the switch, and then the ground will go to this side terminal on the switch. I'm going to get those wired up and then we'll look at it. So here you can see where I've soldered each of the pickups to the switch. I also added a third wire for the ground that's going to head over to the ground itself, to the volume pot, and we'll see that in a second. Last thing I'm going to do on the switch is an output line right here on the center pin. Okay, now I've got that output for the switch wired up on the center pin. That's going to come over here to the volume pot onto this first terminal. While we're at it, we can also ground out the pot by bending this third terminal up until it touches the back of the pot, and then we're going to add some solder there to complete that ground. Now we've got that output wire from the switch connected to the input of this volume pot. I also soldered the ground terminal here to the back of the pot. I also added a puddle of solder to the back of each of the pots, and we're going to use those in just a second for some grounding. The next step I'm going to do is I've got this ground wire that we connect to the switch. I'm going to finish grounding out the rest of the circuit. So that's going to go from that pot to this pot over to the output jack. And on the output jack, there's two terminals. One is directly opposite of this little spring part. That is your hot. That's directly opposite of the spring. The other one connects to the barrel of the output cable. That is the ground. So I'm going to run that ground wire the rest of the way. Okay, that ground wire is in place. So to review, it starts here at the side of the switch, goes to the back of the volume pot, back of the tone pot, and then over to the side terminal on the output jack. We're going to need to run one more ground wire from the back of either of the pots to the bridge post. There's a small access hole from the control cavity to the bridge post hole, and the wire needs to run from the back of either of these pots into that hole to make contact with the bridge posts, and that completes the ground circuit. We'll look at that in a little more detail in just a second. We're going to keep working on this signal. Next we'll wire up the tone pot. So first we need to add the tone capacitor. The capacitor in your kit might be green like this, it might be red, it might be orange. They all work essentially the same. And we're going to connect this to this terminal on the right side of the tone pot and to the back of the tone pot. And then while we're at it, we're going to run the signal wire for the tone pot, which runs from the same terminal where the yellow wire is onto the middle terminal of the tone pot. So we're going to go ahead and connect those. Capacitor soldered in place. As you can see, it's soldered to that leg of the tone pot and then to the back of the pot. I also continued the signal from the volume pot with this second piece of yellow wire going from that same terminal to the middle terminal of the tone pot. That's done. While I was at it, I finished the signal from the volume pot. It goes from the center terminal here to the hot output post on the jack, the one opposite of the little spring that connects to the tip of the output cable. And then finally, the one last wire is the ground wire that goes to the bridge that I mentioned. I soldered this to the back of the pot. This is extra long right now. We'll trim it off. I'll show you how that goes together right now. But for the back of the pickguard, that is done. One thing you can do, you can test this before you put it in your guitar. Plug this right into your amp, and then on the pickups you can just tap the pull pieces with a screwdriver. You'll know right away whether or not the circuit is working. Test both pickups, flip through the switch, make sure your volume is up or you won't get very far, and that way you'll know that it's going to work. If you hear the tapping through your amp, it's going to work once it's on the guitar and strung up. The last step I'll talk about is fishing that ground wire through to the bridge post. So from the control cavity, you'll see a small hole on the side that can be fished through right here to where this post is for the bridge. And then you can strip a generous amount of the wire back, and then just making sure that that wire doesn't move, just hold it in place while you insert the bridge post. Probably should be on the other side like that. That wire will make contact with the bridge post, which will make contact with the bridge, which makes contact with the strings, which makes contact with your fingers and completes the ground. So that is it on wiring the offset P90 guitar kit.